So the Idris, how far along are the crew stations? Like how people might pilot that ship? Have you flushed out the mechanics on that? Are you kind of close to sort of nailing down the how that's all going to function?
Some of them, obviously, like the helm and some of the weapon stuff. We actually had to do a bit of it when we did the Gamescom Idris to Idris battle. But there's still some stuff to be done on like some of the secondary ones, like the engineering and the ATC. So we have stations for the AI, which is kind of what we needed for Squadron. But we also need to work on sort of how the player aspects of that work. So we're still in progress of that. I mean, there's a lot on the Idris because the Idris isn't just the stuff on the bridge. There'll be like the missile room. There's going to be like the flight control officer station. Obviously, there's the turrets. They all work fine. And then there's there's the engineering. There's where the power plant is, which will also have lots of things that you can do. Because the long-term goal is to like have a lot of the tactile interaction. So, for instance, I mentioned before that like the reactor's overheating or a fuel rod like shorts out or something, and then you have to go and replace the fuel rod or lower the reactor down into the coolant. So there should be a lot of sort of this stuff you see in science fiction movies that you actually get to do and run around on a ship. So on a bigger ship, definitely on an Idris, but even on something like a Constellation, you should be able to, by your crew actively going in, stopping a leak or fixing a short or something, keep the life of the ship going longer in, say, combat than it would be if you weren't doing that.
Very cool.
So that would be an advantage of a multi-crew ship over a more single-seater type ship.
What will the big holosphere in the center of the bridge be used for?
That's basically your situational, whatever you want to call it. It'll be a combination of situational radar, and once you zoom more out, it'll be the star map. So you're basically looking at a holographic view of everything around your ship. And ultimately, you'll also be able to call out targets on it. So you'll be able to look at it and you'll be able to click it like an enemy fighter you see flying around holographically. And then you could say, okay, click. And then you could tell your turret gunners shoot at that ship. Or you could tell the people that have launched in their Gladiuses, okay, attack that ship. So you'll use it as a sort of command and control holographic interface, as well as situational radar.
Will the 890 Jump have one of those, you think?
I'd have to take a look at the design on the 890 Jump. Our bigger ships all tend to have what we call hollow globes, which is basically, like you have one even on like, say, a Hornet or Gladius, which is a little sort of spherical radar, and that will transition to a star map as well, but it's all quite small, whereas essentially it's just like having a big screen TV. That's what the hollow globe is. It's just a much bigger version of that, so you can stand there and say, okay, yeah, attack that ship and see more detail because it's bigger.
That's neat. What do you see the role of the 600i with the recent changes to the ship configurations? What do you see the role of the 600i going forward?
Well, I mean, the 600i is kind of like it's in the Constellation kind of size class, but it's sort of a bit more luxury focused. But I would say, yeah, if you want a stylish multi-crew ship, as opposed to the Constellation, then the 600i would be your choice.
Is there still a plan for the Javelin to have different modules? I know it's kind of early on, but
yeah, it's I know we discussed that, so it's too early to say. I mean, right now we have a Javelin that's been built for Squadron 42, so it's the first ship you're actually on. But obviously that one's specific to the military version that you're serving on. So I would say that longer term probably, but we haven't finished. We're in the process of getting the Squadron 42 one version, then we'll start to kind of make the PU version that people would own, because it's the same as like the Idris M and the Idris P. Like there's a slight difference between the P version and the M version. So the M version is what you see in Squadron when we've shown some of the stuff. And then the P version won't have the big railgun, but it'll have some more turrets, and so we kind of have to do a pass to sort of make the sort of PU version ready for use, basically.
How will drones play a role in the Reclaimer, and will there be other aspects of the game that will use drones?
So we're definitely thinking of using drones. We've got a couple other ships that are early stages that would use drones as well. So we're likely to use drones for repair stuff, salvage stuff, and mining stuff. And then there'll be some level of gameplay where you would remotely control the drones doing sort of whatever it is, the reclamation of debris or mining in an asteroid or something like that. So that's kind of the concept of it, rather than you going out yourself in an EVA suit. You send the drone and it can haul in a piece of debris, or it can drill into something. So yeah, we're planning on having a decent amount of kind of like whatever you want to call it, drone gameplay.
I know you guys are going to have news agencies in the game. That was one of the thoughts where you're kind of headed. Do you think with the render detector technology that you guys have gotten in the game, do you think there might be a situation where you'd have news agencies with drones kind of filming the battle and covering?
Well, that's the idea. I mean, the whole idea of having that is having some players that, like, what they do is they basically capture footage of other players doing stuff, and then it can be broadcast or used or sold to other players. So we want to make that kind of fun profession. I mean, again, it's great. You like the players, go out and collect footage. I mean, some of the stuff you see, all the EVE battles, it's because different players have captured the footage. So why not do that in game versus sort of outside game?
Very smart. There used to be a subway map floating around the internet that appeared to be like a subway map of Terra that kind of showed public transportation around the city. Mm-hmm. Is that something you think will wind up ultimately being in the game?
No.
Public transportation, or?
So yeah, there will definitely be transportation hubs and networks in the locations that we have. I mean, that's actually part of our plan. Is to, like we showed the Proc City demo that we did at CitizenCon. Like part of the plan would be like, connecting between locations, potentially either between flying them or, you would take a monorail or something between them. And that's one of the ways that you can have a big city. Like for instance, Terra, which is, Prime on Terra. The idea is, there's a spaceport, and then there's Terra Tower, and then there's the blocks, which are the slums, and they're all spread around in the city, with everything else, with all this, kind of background city. But we're not, even if we have procedural tech that builds out the interiors of the cities, which we plan to do in quite a few areas, it's not going to build out every single square inch of the city because it's just a lot of stuff, and there'll be a lot of the sameness. So the idea is that we have the tools that we can, detail out pockets of these massive sprawling cities over, tens, 20, 100 miles, whatever. And then you would go and, you take a monorail to one of the sections, you get out and you can explore that little area, and then you take it to another area and explore that area. And that's kind of what happens in real life. It's like, I live in Los Angeles, it's a massive city. I don't know every single block here. I don't walk every single block, but I'll be like, okay, I'm here. Now I can go Beverly Hills and I'll walk around Rodeo Drive. Oh, now I'll go down to Santa Monica and I'll walk along Ocean and by the pier there. So that's kind of, think of it that way. Like think of like what you would do in a real city. Like you would go between these different sections, maybe with public transport, the monorail, maybe you would take your car and drive between them. In our case, that would be flying your Aurora or something. So yeah, we're definitely planning on doing that. We're planning on using the procedural city tech that we have, that we showed at CitizenCon, to flesh out these planets. Because if you look at, forget ArcCorp, because that's meant to be all covered by the city. But if you think of something like Hurston, well, I mean that's a super Earth-sized planet. So I mean we've scaled it down to the scale that we decided works well for sort of playability reasons. But it's huge. I mean, it's huge, millions and millions of square kilometers that you can go anywhere. But if there's just one landing location like Lawville, it feels really kind of weird, even if it's a massive sprawling city. So, you would think if that's been fairly well developed, there would probably be quite a few locations spread around the planet, just like in any, like here on Earth, there's, different cities all in America or different cities in Europe or whatever. So that's one of the big reasons why we'd use the tech, is to be able to sort of flesh out multiple landing spots in a way that we never were thinking of or planning in the early days.
Will there be undiscovered planets or star systems that are not part of the star map that would be for players to kind of find and discover?
Well, most definitely, yeah, that's our plan, and we will probably continue to add those as we go along, even after we've gone past the star systems that we'd already talked about inside UEE space.
Will the Terrapin be in 3.0 when it's released?
Terrapin will not be in 3.0. It'll be in a release right afterwards.
You, I think at one point on an interview, you had been quoted as suggesting that it might be possible for players to sort of Agent Smith into an NPC so that they wanted to temporarily kind of join the game and play with their friend, that they might be able to assume the character of an NPC and kind of play along. Is that still something you were thinking of including in the game? And
No, I think that's definitely that will definitely be a longer term feature that we would want to have in the game. Just at the moment, we're trying to get the basic stuff done. But yeah, we'd like to have a way that like you could potentially play off your friend if they're off somewhere else in the galaxy, and you could just sort of say, okay, I'll just take over play your NPC for a while so I can play with you. So that is definitely one of the things we plan to do down the road.
will you be able to fly through the trenches in ArcCorp?
Well, yeah, I mean, we haven't quite decided how we're going to regulate traffic on ArcCorp. So I think we'll probably let you fly kind of low between the buildings and sort of manage it in a way you can't like kamikaze into other players. Because what we don't want you to do is someone to fly their Idris and crash it into the center area in Area 18 and like basically take out 100 players. But some of those trenches and everything, they're in areas you can't actually get to warp, and so we just make those buildings. They don't blow up when you hit them, but you blow up when you hit them, and so we can allow people to sort of fly amongst them if they want.
Okay, one last question. This is probably jumping back to the Idris stuff here. Will players be able to dock the Idris at a space station, or will they have to rely on smaller ships to board and depart?
We're making it that our sort of modular space stations have docking collars for the bigger ships like a Idris or for like a Hull C, Hull D kind of class ship. And then of course you can always land an Idris down on a planet because as we showed at Gamescom, it is landable on planets.
I think that's it. We're good.